Hi everybody, welcome to another Tuesday Assembly, and this time what I wanted to focus on is something that I think is important now that I'm getting various emails from yourselves or teachers and sometimes parents about how we're keeping everything in balance, how you're keeping being out of school and your learning and the restrictions of lockdown, keeping it in a form of equilibrium. That's what I wanted to chat about, and maybe some ideas about how we do that. So go online, you can find all sorts of quotes, but I don't think there's any getting away from them, particularly you chat to older folk like myself. This whole idea of balance isn't a sort of throwaway comment. It's the key to how we're actually feeling here and how we're feeling here. And that affects everything we do. Every aspect of our life is affected by the balance we find. Now, what are you balancing at the moment? Now, I think I've got a few sort of very quick ideas. I think at the moment, day to day, you're trying to balance your schoolwork, the work that maybe a dozen different teachers are setting, and you're now trying to learn and teach yourselves at home without somebody to explain it, without an expert to say, well, actually, you've tried this, but this would be better, or no, you haven't understood how I've explained it that way, but I'll rephrase that. You're balancing your friendships, which has possibly been difficult when you've all been separate from each other. So there's the friendships within our school, with your neighbours, there's the friendships within your family life, but also by family life there is, if you're all in the house together, you all see each other far more. It's that balance of having your space and your brothers and sisters wanting their space and all having all of your meals together. And do you eat your meals together? Do you go back to your room? You're also balancing the commitments you have. Now, maybe not so much at the moment, but you might have commitments in terms of the chores you do. You might have commitments in terms of neighbours you look after. You might have commitments in terms of the pets you have or some of the gardening. So there are commitments as well you're signed up for. They take some of your time. There's some of you, possibly, well, probably not in year 8, but some of you might have parents who own a small business, which you regularly help out on. Some of you might have parents who have a farm, and even in lockdown, cows need milking, lambs need to be born, all the things need growing. But that will take some of your time as well. Some of you might have pressures from the expectations that you say it's the expectations your parents, your teachers have on you, but it's more than likely it's the expectations you have on yourself, isn't it? So you might say it's these external influences, but it's then how you reprocess those, aren't you? But they are things you're balancing, aren't they? And you've also got, now, the key will be where you put these in your list. You've got your own hobbies, haven't you? I know from chatting to you how many of you are musicians. How are you fitting in your time to practice the flute, the violin, still doing your vocal exercises? The sports people, are you still practicing shooting? Are you still practicing your passing drills? Are you keeping yourself fit? Some of your hobbies might be painting, they might be baking, they might be gardening, they might be archery, they might be skiing. All those things are an important part of what you're trying to balance, aren't they? And also the important thing is your health. And by that I probably mean at the time when we're spending so much time in one place, it's your mental health as well, which then goes back to how you balance all this myriad of things, from this to this to this to this to this to this to this. Where do you end up in that list of things? What I'd like you to do this week is particularly think about the balance, okay? So those of you who are saying, well, I do get through all my work, but by the time I finished it, I'm 10 hours into the day because I'll sit down and I'll think about a task and I start reading the book in English and suddenly 2 hours later I'm coming to the end of that task and I'm sure it's too long. Are you dividing your day up so that schoolwork takes the appropriate amount of time? Remember, previously you were arriving in school at 9 and leaving at 3:45, but you'd only ever done 5 hours of work in the school day, hadn't you? A lot of the school day was breaks and lunches. Is that taking up the right amount of time at the moment? And if it's taking up too much time, is it because you don't know when to finish? Or possibly is it because you're not starting jobs effectively? Are you still leaving enough time in your day for these things? Are you leaving enough time in the day for this? Are you still feeding your hobbies? After all this time altogether, how is that? Now, these things, expectations and commitments, take up time. But the expectations one, maybe that's the one to also think more clearly about. Where's the pressure coming from? Is it really external, or are you imagining what expectations other people are having of you, when in fact the real expectation is that you just do as well as you can in this odd situation. Now, as I get older, I'm finding I'm becoming more and more of a possibly a Buddhist or believe in Zen things. I found this list. It's not prescriptive. It's not designed to work for everybody. But I thought this may be a good starting point. As you're spending a day doing things, do one thing at a time and do it, they've said, completely. What I don't mean is then spending 5 hours on the same task. I mean, while you're doing a task, that's the task you're doing. You wake up in the morning, you have your breakfast, and for the first 45 minutes, or whatever day of it, if the first 45 minutes is maths, you're right. You start your maths and you focus on your maths for 45 minutes, and then you stop. You put a space between things. Once a task is finished, you have a break, and then you do something else properly. Now, the other thing you might be doing properly might be 10 minutes relaxing. It might be 15 minutes, 4 or 5 times a day to go back and practice your instrument, or pick up your football, or shoot some hoops, or do some painting. Designate time for certain things. And they've also got somewhere rituals. Now, I'm not talking about spooky religious rituals necessarily. We're talking about, I found that I'm breaking the day up because it is stressful for us as well. We're all in the house together. I will stop and make a coffee, but now my coffee ritual is I get my beans, I grind the beans, I boil the kettle. I'm very sad it has to be at 85 degrees centigrade. I put the ground beans in the cafetiere, add a little bit of water and stir it to let the carbon dioxide out of the grounds. Then I add the rest of the water, stir it 10 times clockwise, 10 times anti-clockwise, let it sit. Sad though it might sound, that's a really good way of, having gone from a task I might be stressed about, that takes my mind completely off it, and then I'm relaxed, and then I can go on back to that task again. They've said devote time to sitting, thinking, staring, reading, listening to music. Devote time to just being still. And then there's some interesting ones at the end. Smiling, serving others, being kind to others, looking out for others, doing favours for others, small bits of kindness. Now I like 10. I mean, I don't know where I got this list from. Make cleaning and cooking become meditation. To my mind, that's all small tasks, isn't it? Whatever you're doing, immerse yourself in it. And then when you come back to the other tasks, the ones that are possibly creating the stress, perhaps you'll find them easier to start. Or coming back with a fresh mind after an hour off, an hour and a half off, or a day off, might make better. Think about what is necessary. Okay? If a teacher said, here's the task, your lesson is usually an hour, before you start spending 40 minutes on colouring the title in 5 different colours, is that necessary? Does that actually help you learn it? live simply. You can interpret that how you like, okay? But life is complicated at the moment. But possibly think about, if you're someone who started off the lockdown period and it was all quite easy going, you were doing the work and but gradually your energy has been worn away, you become less keen on it, you're finding things are stressful, you're short-tempered with your family, you're behind on several things and that's weighing you down. Pick some of those points there. I mean, I think a couple of weeks ago I talked about starting tasks is sometimes the best way to feel happy about them. Don't worry about how you finish them, start them. But there's a few things here. Timing, doing one thing at a time, and having some space between things, and sitting. Think about a better balance. If you're finding your balance has been off, if you found yourself absorbed with one of the things and everything else has gone to pot, you're in year 8. We're not rushing towards producing a plan for a multinational business and billions of pounds are at stake. Your year 11 is years off. We can afford to think, right, let's slow down, take a step back and do that. Now, where do I fit into all that? Let's say you have got a bit behind with something, or you're worried about something, or that struck a chord with you. Email me and I can get in touch with your subject teachers, or email your subject teachers directly. Or if there's something there you think, oh, I'd just be interested in it. Some of you sent me some fantastic emails about things you found on the beach, paintings you're doing, birds you've seen, how you're coping with training football. Do that as well. You'll be surprised how much I appreciate all those emails. Right. This painting or piece of art is 6 foot by 6 foot, and it's called Friendship by Agnes Martin. So 6 foot by 6 foot is my arm span by my arm span, and it is, from what I gathered, it's currently the Tate, but we can't visit it, but as soon as we get out of lockdown, I'm going to London to see this. It is simply gold leaf applied to a board, which I think would be impressive enough. But then the artist has taken, I think, a ruler or a compass and marked in all these grid lines, vertically and horizontally. And she called it, Agnes Martin called it in 1963, Friendship. And I found myself, since I found it on the BBC site, I found myself looking at more and more of her work and someone called Rothko. So Martin was more of a classic artist originally, then became an abstract realist. And apparently her trademark became this meticulous grid, which she, that's mine. I don't know what I like about it. I do just like the effect of gold. I think that beautiful shimmering quality, even though on a flat surface we can see there are different parts of it shining and being in shadow, but also the geometry of it possibly. Perhaps it's my maths thing, so I think it looks like a grid line. So that's called Friendship by Agnes Martin. Now, do you think it looks better on the white background or the black background? And then also, you'll find there's all sorts of artwork she does. This is one called The Egg. Now, I'll have to be honest with you, I've seen it both ways up. So that's the way I've put it on. And I found myself, I've been taking my own advice every so often if I'm getting stressed with making videos, if I'm struggling to find a solution, if I'm battling with Zoom or Microsoft Teams or Skype because my camera's the wrong way up or I can't get my microphone to work, I can come off and think about something entirely different, and I have found it's working for me. I'd also like you to, you're at home, you've got access to all the music in the world, I guess, nowadays. I think you laughed when I produced my little mini disc player and said, look, an hour's music on that. And I think one of you said, but I've got 10,000 tracks on my phone. Why are you saying that's amazing? Right, then you might have 10,000 tracks on your phone. Why not listen to some music you haven't listened to before? Some suggestions are, the top left one is a jazz artist called Jimmy Smith, who, no joking aside, was famous for his one-note solos. Phenomenal keyboard player. You might hate jazz. The middle one is an album called Screamadelica by Primal Scream, which would, I guess, be from the early 90s, which I think is fantastic. Fantastic horn part in there as a start of one of them, which does a bit jazzy, but it's not really jazz. It's sort of Britpop, alternative indie, or more sort of dance orientated. Why not try something by the Chemical Brothers? And I remember Dig Your Own Hole was an absolutely fantastic album. So when you're creating space between your tasks, when you're just doing the sitting, when you're finding some sort of balance, why not listen to those? And what I would like from you is, I would like a recommendation for an album from you as well, something I won't have heard before, to put on and listen to when I'm finding my space. Okay then, that's just over 15 minutes. That's a good time to stop. And don't forget, I thoroughly enjoyed all the people who emailed me, who hadn't previously emailed me last week. Please email me, or email your form tutors as well. Just let them know what you're doing, and then there's a sense that we can keep remembering that we are still part of a community, even though we're not in school together. Okay, till next week, goodbye.